Oh, hey everybody, POTU David here in the mobile studio. It is an overcast day here in Kaiser, Salem, Oregon, USA. And we're going to talk about, this is kind of a training number 3 as for the 5-part Divinity and Truth Filter. If you haven't watched the introduction overview and the number 1, which the divine is, then you're watching them out of order, which is okay because each one of these they all work together. And but I'd recommend you go ahead and watch those as well. But today is an important one. This is a big one. Okay, so I'm going to assume that you've watched those other 2. You've had an overview. We've covered is pretty well. Today is unlimited. Now, just pretend you're sitting in the car next to me. I've got to pay attention to my driving here while I share with you, and I'll glance over at you and say hi along the way as we have this conversation. Number 2 of the 5-part Divinity and Truth Filter, the POTU meaning path of the unlimited. What's the last word in that? Unlimited. What's this one? The divine is what? Unlimited. I want you to think about that. In fact, when you're done watching this, I want you to spend the next week thinking about unlimited. What does that actually mean? Okay. So, anyone I've talked to, and I've talked about just every belief system I could think of when I started coming up with this. And where did the 5-part Divinity and Truth Filter come from? Good question. And let's answer that real quick. I was very, very frustrated. I shared my story in the last video about is, divine is. I had this idea, an inspiration to create sacred space, which for me was like a room. It had plants. I could light a candle. I could burn incense. You know, this stuff, we all know this stuff, right? It was just to get me quiet where I could listen. And I would go into what I would call sacred space. And I'd have a notepad. And I'd ask questions. And I would listen. And this whole thing came about because I wanted a way of sorting it all out. All these beliefs had all these histories of miracles. Everyone thinks they're right. We have this ideological, sometimes physical war over who's right and who's not. And it's like none of this made any sense to me as a human being. Because I started thinking, well, a divine, a God, someone that created all that is, which is a lot, which is, if you ever stared out in the Milky Way, if you've gotten away from city lights and you could actually see it, or you see some of this Hubble telescope type stuff and the new telescope, it's a wonder. It is beyond our comprehension what is out there. So a consciousness of being an entity that put that all in motion, right, is unlimited, right? It's kind of amazing. And when I start thinking about that, it's like, well, then why would any deity tell someone that this little piece of land somewhere, anywhere on this planet is special compared to any other? It's like this whole planet is a speck of dust in the bigger scheme of things. So, it's just kind of like crazy. Why? Well, that's not a mindset of something or somebody that's unlimited. Now, I can't grasp the divine, right? I don't think any of us can. And it's okay. It's fair to say that. It's beyond us, right? But I think we can grasp enough of it to say, well, this doesn't make any sense then, because if I'm able to understand that this doesn't make any sense, then it's a pretty good clue that maybe some of what I might be thought of doesn't make any sense. Keep in mind that literacy, ability to read and write, is kind of a new thing, right? Way back in the day, right? That was magic. Spell work was spelling, writing. That was all magic. Being able to remember something from hundreds or thousands of years ago, that is something that was incomprehensible to the people who wrote some of this stuff. And they were brilliant people, obviously, right? When I think of an unlimited being, and what does unlimited mean? We talk about omnipresent, meaning they're everywhere all the time, okay? omniscient, meaning they're all powerful. They can do anything. If they want to move a mountain, boom, the mountain is just like in a video game. It moves. Unlimited is quite a word to unpack, and we may not have enough time to unpack it. So, would a divine limit itself to one person? I don't think so. Would a divine limit itself to one time in history? I don't think so. Would a divine not understand us as human beings? I don't think so. Would a divine limit itself to one race and play favorites and create racism? I don't think so. Would an unlimited divine, allow for slavery? I don't think so. So, we've got problems. Because when we look at the history of all these belief systems, does the divine need warriors? You create this planet. Let's just start here. Forget all the billions of planets just like this, or trillions of planets, or universes. If the divine wanted to smite something, boom, it's done, right? Well, David, it has to work through us. Does the divine have to do anything? I don't think so. See, there's so much, when you start using the word unlimited, when I hear someone speak about, this, that, or the enemy of God, it's like, how can an unlimited being have created all this have any enemies? Well, there was this revolt in heaven. I'm not like, okay, have you not looked into the Milky Way? Right? We spend more time talking about Satan in America, right? Which is an ancient jinn myth, which is a whole ideology separate from anything that's really kind of diabolically different than what Christianity has framed that being as being in the first place. It's kind of weird. But, it's easy to get away with that kind of stuff when you don't have access to technology. But today, any one of us from anywhere in the world in any language can research the language of our enemies and the histories of our enemies. Not saying that everyone's got enemies. It's like, there's no need for enemies, right? Well, the story of the Tower of Babel, like mankind was building a tower to touch God. Huh. Why would God be afraid of that? Unlimited being. You go into the Exodus, there's talking about if man were to eat from the tree of life, he'd become like us, not like me, plural. It's just like, there's like these little hints and clues that for some reason they missed. And I'm not here to prove anything one way or the other, not a mistranslation. Go look it up yourself. My point is, why would an unlimited being be afraid of anything? I want you to ponder unlimited, because when you hear someone speak, when you read, whatever your holy writ is, right? To the best of my understanding, there allegedly were 10 commandments that were penned by the Almighty himself, and we lost it. We lost them. We have no way of proving, but that was the only thing written by, quote-unquote, God. And those things are kind of incomplete. They don't make any sense. Thou shalt not kill. Oh, go into that country and kill every man, woman, and child as a directive. It's like, wait a second. Thou shalt not create graven images. Oh, now I want you to create this thing called the Ark of the Covenant that has graven images. Seriously, maybe 4,000 or 5,000, 6,000 years ago, they weren't thinking about those contradictions. I'll tell you, an unlimited being understands language and doesn't create contradictions. I love it when I see any preacher of any belief system hold something up and say, this is the word of God. There are no contradictions. Like, I can't even get out of the first few chapters without pointing out contradictions. So it's kind of like, oh, so all of knowledge is that's necessary is limited to this work that they spent like 300 years sorting out, a council of men. There weren't any women on the council. It's kind of limiting, isn't it? It's not meant to be an attack on anyone's belief systems. I'm most familiar with Christianity because I was born and raised in Judeo-Christianity, Old New Testament stuff. What messed me up is I actually read it. A lot of folks don't realize, was it like until the 60s or 70s, the Bible itself was a forbidden book. It said you go insane reading it if you weren't trained by the church. In that case, the Catholic Church. gathered up all the knowledge, and you had to come to them to read any of it way back in the day, right? No, seriously, this is history. If you don't know history, don't take my word for it. Go work with AI or something. Ask the questions. I'm learning things that I thought were true. I'm 59 and a half years old, and AI helps me sort it out. Well, David, it could be biased. Well, yeah. Well, like all the other shit's not biased. Come on, man. What I like about AI is it uploads data, and then it uses logical algorithms to sort things out. Yeah, but garbage in, garbage out. Right, yeah. What's neat about AI is it's artificial intelligence, which means it's designed to sort things out with logic and reason. I don't think that any concept of deity is illogical. Man's highest reason doesn't even compare. Yeah, but I'll tell you what. If I could identify the Almighty, were to beam down in my car right now, I'd think more Star Trek than unlimited being that created it all, right? I need more than that. There's a whole genre of belief system. It's all about UFOs and alien that planted us here, and they've actually got some interesting, valid points that make more sense than other stuff. But the sky right now is gray. The pavement I'm driving on is kind of gray with mixes of black. Tar. That beamer say, David, actually, what you're looking at is bright yellow. Like, no, it's not. There's a yellow line, yeah, but no, the sky's not yellow right now. I mean, there's yellow light in there. What are you talking about, right? But, I have the ability to sort it out. Oh, there's a field. It's green. Is that my perception? Yeah. Could it be a different color? Possibly. I mean, you start digging into philosophy and physics and science and quantum physics, it gets confusing. But the principle of unlimited really is not. Because all that stuff that's confusing us, if we are going to believe that a divine exists, that divine created and understands all of that stuff, and we're just still infants. And look at what we've done with what little we've uncovered. We can literally destroy ourselves. We can destroy our entire species within minutes or a few hours, maybe. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Okay, so I've arrived at my day job, so we can talk a little bit more without any distractions. Unlimited. I mean, you think about, like, you look over to Indians and their texts, and you think about the biblical stuff. You talk about chariots of fire. It's like aircraft, spacecraft. It makes sense, right? Who knows? We don't know. But are we thinking unlimited? Right? When you look at the diversity of our species, right? And if we can interbreed with each other, science has proven that that's actually healthy for the genetic survival of our entire species. So racism actually is bad. Racism genetically leads to disease, destruction, all sorts of stuff. Kind of weird, right? Diversity, right? Diversity is healthy for our species. Kind of weird, right? It's kind of weird. Unlimited. Are you thinking unlimited? When you read a text, this is going to make more sense when we get to the next one, right? This is number 2, right? The divine is unlimited. I think that's enough for now. That is so big. I want you to just think around the concept of what's unlimited and what is unlimited. And whoever you are, whatever your holy writ is or works or whatever, I want you to ponder that which is unlimited. And we like to learn stuff as a species. We're learning machines. We learn, grow, and change. And we've reached places where we're unlimited in certain aspects and things, but our ancestors who created a lot of these stories couldn't even comprehend the technology I'm using today. It would freak them out. Unlimited is big. And it works together with this. Unlimited is a kingpin concept. So I want you to really get in touch with unlimited. And when you read about something, you think about something, I want you to ask yourself, well, would an unlimited being even think that way? Does an unlimited being need money? Does an unlimited being support war? Does an unlimited being, a creator of all that is, need anything at all? And the answer is no. Then why do we have all these needy beliefs with needy God concepts? Yeah. It's a big deal, unlimited. Because when we start talking about the divine needs us to do something, needs us to go to war, needs us to hate, needs us to kill, needs us to commit genocide, needs us to enslave, plays favorites, we're dealing with an entity that is in violation of the next lesson, which is unlimited love, agape love, right? That was kind of one of the big contributions of the whole Jesus mythology, or Jesus revelations, was the concept of, well, we're all, it was the foundation of the concept of universal, sentient, equal, and civil rights, right? Who's my brother? Everybody. Who's my sister? Everybody. Let's go one step further. Who's your son or daughter? Everybody. Who's your father and mother? Everybody. Who's your grandfather and grandmother? Everybody. Yeah. It's the brotherhood and sisterhood, or the beinghood of humans. We could go one step further, right? Since we are the most evolved species so far on the planet, right? Are we a steward to the lesser species? Which we pretty much view as just our domain, and we own it all, and we can destroy it all if we want to, and we can exterminate and extinct entire species because, I don't know, we like to eat it. Is that responsible? Is that stewardship? You know, which feeds into the fourth thing, that all has divine purpose. So if another species was created to have a purpose and we're extincting entire species, isn't that kind of disrespectful to life that was created or evolved, or a combination of both? I know, it's deep stuff, right? Unlimited. I started seeing this stuff at a young age, and I assumed that what I was being taught was true. And then research and data and archaeology, all the stuff that wasn't making sense to me didn't make sense for valid reasons, because I call it mythology being taught as fact. Now, a good story teaches a principle, right? So I can't fault the story. But when a story empowers us to do ungodly acts like genocide, torture, invading, conquering, stealing land, all that stuff, I call it divine rights. This one person, this one family has a divine right to rule over everyone else. And if you look at the history, it's probably because someone back in their history, they were the most evil, ruthless, ungodly, beyond any terrorist concept you can comprehend, and smart enough to be a strategist, rolled into one. And then when they get to that level of power, suddenly they become holy, anointed by God. The most recent example of that is the ruling family of North Korea. It's literally an adopted story from Christianity, but it's not Christianity. Yeah. So we have history and multiple examples of how religions come into even being. It was one of my first questions that I asked a rabbi way back, little David. I got to meet a rabbi, and there are a lot of intelligent, highly educated people, and I'm saying, I don't understand something. It's like, what's that? I says, well, it's my understanding that God told the Jewish people to sacrifice, these animals and stuff on this altar, right? The mercy seat, all that. Ark of the Covenant thing. And yes, I said, well, when did God tell the Jewish people to stop doing that? Well, back in so-and-so, Rabbi so-and-so determined. I said, no. I'm 6. When did God, Jehovah, tell the Jewish people to stop doing it? You don't understand. So Rabbi so-and-so, and I said, I don't really care about Rabbi so-and-so. I want to know, when did God give a new directive? Couldn't answer. That's when my mom grabbed me and pulled me away from the conversation. But I wasn't done. That, when I think back, that was a starting point for me of like, couldn't answer the question. Right? When I went into a Catholic church, the house of God, there's all these idols everywhere, right? And like, okay. And Father Livingston, neat man, huge man, like 6'7", he was a deputy sheriff of the town, right? Little town in Wisconsin. What do you think of the house of God? And I says, well, I don't understand why all these idols are here. It's in a violation of the first commandment of God. He was just taken aback, and he smiled and he explained it to me, and I didn't buy it. The explanation made no sense to me. I think it was like 8 or 9 or 10, that age group. I'm like, okay. But then I thought to myself, why would God care about anything? And then I went back, and when I could read, that opened up a lot of doors to me. I could go read the stuff for myself. And it's like, here, don't do it. And then a couple paragraphs later, we're doing what we're just ordered not to do. And I'm like, what's going on? I mean, I'm like 10, 11 years old. How is it that, and I'm cognizant of the fact that I'm just like a little kid, right? How is it? I remember I was so proud. I went to talk to Father Livingston. I said, I figured out something God couldn't do because he's unlimited. And he laughed. He says, okay. He crossed his arms. He says, no, God can do anything. I says, no, he can't, Father Livingston. There's something he can't do. And he said, no, David, God's unlimited. He can do anything. And I do mean anything. I said, nope, I think there's one thing he can't do. He says, okay, what you got? I says, he can't commit suicide. He can't destroy himself. Mic drop. He started doing this. He says, you may be onto something there. Maybe there is one thing God can't do. And then I was learning about the Big Bang Theory. I says, I was thinking about omnipresence. He says, okay. I says, what if in the beginning there was this massive energy thing, and then God decided to create, and it just exploded and created all that is, and therefore everything is the essence of the divine. Law of conservation of energy and matter. Energy and matter can neither be created nor destroyed. That sounds like God, right? From a physics perspective. That made sense to me. Now we're coming to the conclusion that the Big Bang isn't really kind of what the thing was, but we don't know. We're still learning. But I'm having these thoughts, as a young man, as a teenager and stuff. It's just driving me crazy. I'm trying to understand deity. That made sense to me at the time based on the theories that we had. It made a whole lot more sense than the stuff that just was romantic language, just mythology being presented as fact. Because, early on, and, atheists talk about this, like, okay, Adam, Eve had some sons, right? There was just Eve. There were no other women involved. So how did we get a lot of incest and stuff? My brother was interested. He said, here's a question for you, David. Did Adam and Eve have belly buttons since they were created and not born? I said, well, that's easy. They didn't have belly buttons. Duh. Anyway, shout out to my brother John. May he rest in peace. But unlimited, I didn't realize it, but I've been pondering this all of my life, and I still don't have all the answers. But if you want to sort out the stuff, when something's trying to rule over your life that was written by some guy 2,000, 4,000 years ago, that more than likely was plagiarizing some other guy from 4,000 or 5,000 years previously, that's some person that couldn't even use your cell phone trying to tell you how to rule your life today. A species during an era where just survival was the only thing they had to think about. The idea of looking up in the stars and contemplating bigger things was a luxury. People that thought slavery or ungodly tortures or genocide was just part of tactics couldn't even understand this conversation we're having here today. Is being allowed to rule over your life as an absolute ironclad iron fist. That's the way it is. And I think we've got to stop giving our power to create a way to long dead people who couldn't even understand your car. They would fall down to their faces to the ground and cry and weep just overhearing you start the engine. They would be so afraid. And you're letting those people, we as a species, are letting those people tell us what to do. I don't know. I don't think it's smart. We're supposed to learn from our past, not allow the past to rule. We're supposed to take what they knew and build on it and build on something better. That was the miracle of the United States. Is we went to war to say we want to create something new based on everything we know so far. And what they did was brilliant. It was literally, I can see why it was viewed as divine. But the moment we started bearing the truth about what we did in order to establish this nation, we started doing the same mistakes other human beings throughout history have done, other rulers that became more powerful than the indigenous that they conquered, as if the indigenous had no value. They had a whole different lens and belief system. Their perspective was more in alignment with unlimited and stewardship than this conquering and, that tree belongs to me because I said so now. I have a divine right to cut it down. I don't care if it's 1,000 years old. I need to build a bridge. How disrespectful is that? And meanwhile, we found whole civilizations of our species that have learned how to build and work with nature instead of ownership of nature. We have examples of different ways. I wonder where we would have been as a species had we maintained a stewardship context instead of an ownership context. Unlimited. I think we need to stop limiting ourselves. And this is why it all boils down to principles to me, right? Can you imagine being stoned to death because you mixed fibers in your clothing? I mean, seriously, it's right up there with all the other things we want to forbid. And it's just free will but forbid. Free will but forbid. I think the principle is whenever we use our free will to override another person's free will, we've crossed the line. Hence, thou shalt not kill, right? But if someone wants to wear a dress and go potty somewhere, suddenly we're going up in arms over it. I don't really care. That's why they have stalls, doors. It's just, whatever. And yet in prison systems, we don't even have that sometimes, right? There's no privacy. So it's just that's a liberty. Being able to pee and poop in private seems to be a liberty, right? But what's the principle? What's the principle? Freedom of choice, right? Well, in order to have governance, it's just in order for us to get along, we have to not override the freedoms and choices of others. And then that's when governance comes in, do I have the right to build a nuclear bomb in my garage? And the answer is no. Why? Because you've become a threat to your entire region. You know what I'm saying? Me having a weapon to defend my home is one thing. Me building something to where I could wipe out my entire neighborhood or my entire city is a whole different concept. And we have people debating this, and there's no debate. You know what I mean? I mean, a billionaire shouldn't be able to buy an aircraft carrier fully loaded with weapons and stuff. And yet we're sort of allowing that to happen in certain parts of the world. Governance is a thing. And the only way we can get along is if we boil it down to universal principles we can all agree upon. Well, this culture doesn't agree. This culture believes in enslaving women and torture, and believes in slavery. Okay. It's their culture, David. Oh. So I'm okay with saying that needs to stop. Yeah, because somewhere along the line they weren't doing that, and some already wealthy or powerful person decided they wanted to do that. So I'm okay with putting a stop to things that we know collectively as a species are wrong. I'm okay with that. That's called moving forward. Oh, well, then you're going to have to force them to stop, maybe. Yeah, maybe. That's how we move forward. But what about a peaceful people that's just living, whatever? Well, we should protect them. Why? Because we can. Why? Because they're not hurting anybody. Don't need to violate their rights. They want to live that way, let them live that way. They're not hurting anybody. Right? I mean, when you start tuning in the 5-part Divinity and Truth Filter, you can start looking at the world through a different lens. It's a lens of stewardship. Right? No, you don't get to. It may be culturally okay for you to marry off that 12-year-old to a 40-year-old or 50-year-old dude, but not happening on my watch. You're violating, you're disrespecting. No, not. You're violating a principle. Well, who are you? Well, you see where it gets kind of complicated, right? But it really isn't. We as a species get to create what's next. If we look at our entire world as a holistic entity and we are stewards, we don't get to allow anybody to run around and destroy what's going to impact all of us. Universal, sentient, human and civil rights. Universal means all. All means all. Yeah. Do we have the right to disrupt? Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. But here's the problem. We, as a species, haven't actually gotten to a point where we've established, the United Nations established universal human rights, but we're not enforcing it, even in the United States. And we weren't the only. If you were to read through it, it's a brilliant document, you could see that, wow, they really evolved this. It looks like the U.S. documents evolved. Well, it's the Magna Carta and all sorts of other things. It's a lot of countries put that together, yet we're not honoring it. We're not enforcing it. The United States is supposed to be a leader, and we're kind of not leading, and we're kind of picking and choosing. And that's part of what's asked. We have to distill it down to a set of principles that we decide not to violate anymore. And that's kind of what this whole channel is about. All right. I think Unlimited has been covered very, very well. I hope this has been interesting to you. You may need to watch it a few more times. Some of the segues get into things. The purpose is to get you to think about it. Unlimited. Stewardship. I'm introducing concepts. There's a reason for it. All right. POTU David out.